Man.
So we're right back into it. I was just about to start talking about the Vikings game. I had to wake up. So Jason, you were asking me. I had to wake up crazy early after a bachelor party. So it was a relatively late night on Saturday, and then I had an alarm set for 6:15 to check lineups to watch. I watched it while we got some breakfast. Uh, you should not have to depend on a 61-yard field goal kick to hit
Huh.
the uprights not once but twice and then miss in order to win a game when the Saints don't have their left tackle, don't have quarterback, don't have their starting star running back, and don't have their starting star used to be star wide receiver. When you
Jeez.
are playing a team that has that much of their starting personnel missing, I mean, every important position you can think of on the offense, right? Wide receiver, left tackle, quarterback, and running back. And you can only win because of a football hitting an upright twice. Not once, because after the first time it looked like it was about to go in anyway. Twice. You're not a good football team. Now, I have so much respect for Dalvin Cook, who played well, played hard, ran hard, only got 70 yards, but he was running hard and doing what he could. Kirk Cousins just he never does anything to separate himself from the pack. He had exactly what he usually does, except for he usually has 2 touchdowns. So he had 273 yards, one passing touchdown, one interception. Justin Jefferson got like an end around touchdown. It was good to see Justin Jefferson come back to life with 147 yards, but that's because the Saints defense isn't anything special. I'm glad they won. They're still 3-1 and they're still in the top of the division, but this is not a good football team, and this is not a team that's on the cusp of becoming very good. I think Kevin McConnell really needs to figure out what he's going to do and how he's going to scheme a little bit better because the scheme, the way that they're doing this, it's feast or famine for Jefferson and Thielen, and they're not getting they're not a pass centric team, which is what they said they were going to be. They're actually 50-50 almost exactly on run plays and pass plays. Balance is fine, but if you're going to run a balanced offense, you're going to need to figure out how to scheme it to make better use of those run plays instead of just running it straight up the middle and calling it a gap. But anyways, I know, Jason, you have a lot to say. I don't have much to say other than I am not convinced that this team is as good as their record. And we'll talk about it this week. This week isn't going to help me prove my point any because we play the Chicago Bears. But
You gotta
go
buy.
ahead, Jason.
No, I don't have a lot to say, but I did notice a couple things with Minnesota. I can see why they played, I think, in 14 close games last year. They don't blow out pretty much. I know they don't blow out good teams, but they're good
That's why they
enough
got a
to
new coach.
right. But they're good enough to compete with anybody. They're good enough. Minnesota's good enough to compete with any team in the NFL. Not saying they'll win, but they're good enough to compete. I still feel confident they're going to win a division. They're the best team in that division. I still have no doubt they'll win that. But what I notice is about their pass game. I've watched, I think, more Minnesota football this year than I've done the past maybe couple years. They
It's week
throw a lot
3.
of right. They throw a lot of
4.
underneath and shallow crossing routes. I mean, a lot. And I would like. I'm with you. I would like to see Kevin Connell be a little more creative on offense. Just a bunch of. I mean, the underneath and shallow stuff is working, but you kind of with those receivers and that kind of talent on offense, you kind of want to do a little bit more. But other than that, look, Minnesota won. I know I was actually on the fence.
Jefferson is not Cup, and I don't think McConnell's figured that out yet.
But yeah, New Orleans. Like I'm not really a too big of a fan of New Orleans because I mean, Dennis Allen is their head coach. If Sean Payton was there, it's a different story. But Dennis Allen is their coach. I'm not really too fond of him. He's another defensive guy that struggling in NFL like all the rest of the defensive guys. So good win for Minnesota. They'll come back and have a bye week. They'll have 2 byes. They'll have some time off, and they'll play the Bears, which is a bye week. So they'll be fine. Glenn, you got any thoughts on the game?
Nah, y'all said it. I know I texted the group like, man, hey, that's a good win. Y'all won. Brian was like, did you actually see the game? I was like, well, all right, fair. Like, but a win's a win, right? So you gotta take them however you can get them. But yeah, we'll see what happens going forward. Other games you guys mentioned, we got to talk about the Ravens and the Bills.
Hell yeah, I know,
Good,
Brian.
good
You had
game.
Baltimore. I'll let you go first.
Good game.
No, you go. You can start off. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I only took Buffalo. I mean, so everybody talked. A lot of people bet on Baltimore because they were getting 3 points at home, and they were saying Buffalo has a banged up secondary, which is true. They are banged up, but they forget Lamar Jackson's on the other side. He's not going to be able to take advantage of that secondary. He's a runner. He's not a passer. Well, he could already take advantage for a quarter and a half, but not all 4 quarters. So, but Baltimore did what they usually do. They start off fast and they kind of slowed down the end. They score only 6 points the last 3 quarters. Lamar only had 36 yards passing in the second half, and they were shut out in the second half. But I did know something about Lamar that I think is kind of common with people. That people say he gets down. He threw an interception. And he gets kind of down. He gets emotional and down on himself. And I never really noticed that about Lamar. It seems like maybe the interceptions affect him more than they should. I don't know if because he's in contract year or something. I don't know. But it was. I never seen Lamar pretty much act like that or guess those reactions that he had. Um, but yeah, I just took Buffalo basically because they just had the better quarterback. I didn't know that Baltimore has lost 5 straight games at home. But Buffalo, got to give them credit. This was a big game. They were banged up. But still, either way, I don't think the way Lamar or Josh Allen plays is sustainable. Uh, Josh Allen is Buffalo's running game. I don't know how you're going to win in playoff games with no running game or if your quarterback's the running game. I think that's just dangerous. And then, Lamar does a lot for Baltimore, and that's kind of why Baltimore's offense and Lamar kind of slow down, as the season progresses, because they're kind of doing too much of that in the beginning of the year, and you get kind of tired or whatever or worn down. But good game, good win. It was a joy to watch. Either team could have won. I guess thankfully, for my point spread league, Buffalo ended up winning the game. But it was a good game, though. I would like to see a little more offense from Baltimore, but still a decent game. What you
Definitely.
think about it, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, look, Baltimore lost, but they lost because of a field goal in the fourth quarter, which means it was a good game. It was well played on both sides. Buffalo came in with a good game plan to try and put a lot of zone out there and make sure there was a lot of looks for Lamar Jackson, which made it hard for him to get a lot of passing yards. That was a smart way to play when they're banged up on defense, which they were. Um, I picked against Buffalo because ultimately I think of the game as a running backs game, and Buffalo has no running backs. They have Josh Allen, who ran for 70 yards, and then with on 11 carries, and Devin Singletary, who ran for 49 yards on 11 carries. And in both of these instances, like Lamar Jackson was also the leading rusher, but Justice Hill and J.K. Dobbins both contributed to a running game in Baltimore. And Baltimore historically has one of the best rushing offenses, not just because of Lamar Jackson, he obviously participates, but because they have guys like J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, who's coming back to practice this week. I still think Baltimore is the better team out of right now. But congratulations to Buffalo. And I obviously like Buffalo a lot. I even said it last week. I was picking the Baltimore Ravens to win, but I still think Buffalo is going to be the team that represents the AFC in the playoffs. I think they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do with this running game because this Devin Singletary experiment is just not going to work when you play in the playoffs against really good teams that have really strong defenses who will absolutely make Buffalo one-dimensional. That's not to say that Buffalo can't win some games that way because Stephon Diggs is that good, but they're going to make them one-dimensional and they're going to make them throw and they're going to make them put them in situations where they have to press. So, anyways, congratulations to the Bills. Not shocking in any way, shape, or form the result. It was a solid game. This is one of the few that I actually got to watch.
Yeah.
Glenn, you watch it?
Oh yeah, definitely. It was a good game. I was watching back and forth and watching that on Red Zone too, but just back and forth, man. I love seeing the young quarterbacks go at it. So and then both teams have a solid defense. So seeing Josh Allen do what he does, and then Lamar going back, and just the way that they scheme and put things together was great to watch. Like you said, it was a joy to watch. Great football game. I think the right team won. In the rain, Buffalo did what they had to do.
Yeah, Buffalo, man, in second half they've been killing it this year. Third quarter they've outscored teams 44-0. I mean that's coaching right
Crazy.
there. They're coming out of halftime they're
Hot.
like the
Yep.
Warriors. But
Yeah.
unlike the Warriors, this is the first close game Buffalo has won in 7 tries. They lost 6 straight games, 6 straight close games. They usually blow teams out and lose
Yeah,
in
that
close
ain't good.
ones. So they
Um,
finally won one.
We got to talk about Seahawks and Detroit Lions because that thing, it was like watching a number just keep going up and up and up. I mean, they scored
Man.
48 to
93
45.
points. Yeah, 93 points
Seahawks.
between them.
Well, Brian, talk about it. You started.
All right. So just this game, I was in Seattle, so this was the game that was easiest to watch. And it was actually kind of fun to watch. These are not good teams, but it was kind of fun to watch because they just kept on scoring, and there was a lot of offense, and there was a lot of things to get excited about. Watching Rashad Penny run for 151 yards, watching for Jamal Williams run for over 100 yards. Jared Goff threw for 4 touchdowns.
Crazy.
Sorry, Dredd, that does not mean he's any good. Geno Smith threw for 320 yards and 2 touchdowns. And it was just exciting to watch. I mean, you could not stop every few plays. It seemed like there was a team scoring. And then, as I think we talked about earlier, Detroit Lions are actually one of the higher scoring teams in the league right now, and it's because they have a lot of different weapons that they're able to equally use. What the leading receiver was T.J. Hawkinson, their tight end, for
Yeah, he was getting off.
179 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, anyways, not a great example of football. The one thing I will say is Geno Smith has proven that he is a serviceable, not saying good,
Absolutely.
serviceable quarterback on a pro team. He has a team that very easily, I think most of us would have said, been perfectly okay with the idea that they would have gone 0-4 to start this season, and they're 2-2, and right in the mix. I'm not suggesting that Seattle's going to win any divisions or even make the playoffs, but this is a team that intended to be dead, intended to lose lots of football games, did what they could to make sure that would happen, and ultimately, and put Geno in there to be the sacrificial lamb, and he's played solid football. 320 yards and 2 touchdowns is solid football.
Yeah, all season. He's got better numbers than Russ for sure.
So I guess okay.
And probably Kirk and what is his name?
Garoppolo.
Garoppolo. Yeah.
All right. So I don't think that about Geno. I mean, yeah, they play Denver, but more largely due to they kind of know Russ. But the next week against Seattle, they didn't score, and Atlanta's a bad defensive team, and they lost that game too. But I'm happy that they beat Detroit because this was my number 1 pick in my point spread league. Detroit was given 4 points, and Detroit should not give anybody any points in any game ever. So they got for 4 points. And they end up winning the game. It was the most entertaining game this week. I will agree to that. Happy Seattle won. I'm actually happy for Geno Smith. I don't hate him. I just don't think he's any good. But I'm actually happy for Geno Smith.
He's okay.
Detroit.
He's in the middle at least.
Yeah. Oh, I think he's like way down. But like I said, I don't hate Geno. I just don't think he's any good. But I'm happy for him that he's getting a chance. I'm happy he's starting for Seattle because he should. He's better than Drew Lock. But Detroit, on the other hand, I know, Brian, you said they score a lot of points, but they give up a lot of points too. They're the first team in NFL history.
They're an awful team
to score 35 points and to give up 35 points a game. So they score over 35 and they give up over 35 a game. That Jameis Winston should be actually quarterbacking this team. But yeah, they don't have any defense, but I guess that's good for people who play fantasy if you're going against Detroit. So
yeah. What
but Detroit, but you also have to understand about Detroit. The reason why they're scoring all these points is what they're playing, I think, in domes or indoors in all these games. So I think once they play New England next week, I'm gonna take New England on that one. It's an outdoor game, and I don't think they're just gonna be.
You should always take the team that's playing Detroit. They are not a good football team, but they score. They're just going to give, like, the thing that you should learn is if you need a game where I don't know if Mac Jones is gonna play, but if for Mac Jones to get right, like, this is the team you want to play him against.
Yeah.
If you wanted to see, the quarter running back by committee for New England do well, you can watch it against Detroit. Look, Geno Smith leads the league in completion percentage by 7%. That's a pretty significant increase over the number 2, who's Matt Stafford. But he's passing for 320 yards and completing at 77%. most of the other big yardage guys don't throw for that kind of precision. Kind of precision, they throw volume, right? So when you look at these other guys who are throwing for 300 yards, they're getting 40, 50 throws in those games. He's getting far less throws, just making more out of them. It helps to have DK Metcalf, but it's not all DK Metcalf on that team.
Yeah, you got to put the ball where it's got to be.
And again, nobody's saying that Geno is definitely in the middle of that pack because he's not in the top section here, but he's in the middle. He's not at the bottom because none of the guys at the bottom can throw for 77%. None of those guys can throw for 320 yards. And that you could put them in a gym by themselves and they wouldn't be able to get those numbers. So he's a solid person. And remember, he was put in there and left for dead. Like nobody expected this to be a team that could get 2 wins, be 2-2. So anyways, congratulations.
You had Seattle as the worst team in the NFL to come in this year. I had Chicago. How do you feel about Seattle now? Do you still think they'll be the worst team? Because I still think there's a chance.
No, I don't think there's a chance they're going to be the worst team.
Oh,
I think that's exactly what Geno brought to the table is that he made them good enough to not be really bad. They're not going to be a good team, but they're going to be a team that you can't overlook on your game list.
Okay. All right. We'll
Definitely.
see. I don't think that, but we'll see. I'll definitely be on the lookout for that.
It's been fun to watch. He's been solid, man.
I remember they are tied with your San Francisco 49ers.
Everybody's tied in that division. Exactly. And nobody expected that to happen. So that's true.
Sorry.
That is true.
I did want to bring in the Dolphins and the Bengals game though. Even though the Bengals win handedly because of Tua, and just get you guys' thoughts on that.
Well, everybody's getting on Mike McDaniel's case about playing him, and Mike McDaniel, and neither does any other NFL coach have a say. The doctor said that he was good. He got fired subsequently, so I guess he's not that good of a doctor. There are C-level doctors out there, but told him he was good. I didn't think Tua was going to play this game. He did. A little bit scary. You don't want somebody to die on the field, but I did predict that Cincinnati would blow out Miami, blowout meaning win by 10 or more, and they did, but not because of the whole Tua situation, but a little because of Tua, but more because of that emotional game they played against Buffalo. But as far as Tua is concerned, I don't want to see Tua play this entire the rest of the season. I think they have a capable backup in Teddy Bridgewater to run that offense. Teddy can just do what he did. All he has to do is just throw, slant passes or short passes.
Bro, he looked fantastic. Like the first play he came, it was like a 15-yard completion and didn't stop. Teddy looked great.
Yeah, Teddy. I mean, there's a reason they call him Teddy Covers. I mean, at one point he was 18-4 against the spread. I mean, he comes in.
Yeah, he gets
does
busy.
what he needs to do. He's not going to try to lose you the game, but he's not going to win you the game. He's just going to get the ball out to people who can make plays. And I think with this offense, especially with McDaniel, he coached Garoppolo. So if he coached Garoppolo and made him a little bit productive, I know Teddy Bridgewater will be productive with these receivers. So I don't worry about Miami too much. And I'm actually taking Miami and Teddy B against the Jets next week. But as far as Cincinnati, they needed this game. It's a get-right game. I still don't think they're all the way back yet, but I thought this would be an easy game for them to win. But just going back to Tua, I don't want to see that happen to anybody. I mean, once you're throwing up gang signs when you on the ground, that seems like more of a I think that's just more than I think it's maybe a nerve issue or something, like maybe neurological. Well, I'm not even saying it right, but you guys know what I mean. I'm not a doctor or nothing, but I just don't think something is right upstairs, and I just wouldn't play Tua for a while. I would just roll with Teddy Bridgewater. What you think, Brian?
So I didn't get to watch the game because I was on an airplane when it actually happened, but I did watch lots of the highlights or lowlights as it was. All I got to see was just text message after text message in our group message about how he almost we were about to watch somebody get killed on screen, and it was when I saw the play, it was scary, and I was seeing it knowing the end result. I was seeing it after the fact. It's scary to see something like that happen to a professional athlete. It was absolutely a reminder as to why I probably would not want my family to play football, especially not because there's violence in football, but because there's such a lack of concern for the health of football players by those people who are especially employed to protect them. that NFL Players Association doctor, if you could bring him up on charges in addition to firing him, I would be all for it. Can't, but still, what he did was damn near criminal. He put Tua in a situation where he could have lost his career, could have lost his life, could very well end up with, if Tua ends up with CTE, the only thing that everyone's going to point to is these 2 weeks. As for the game, Steady Teddy is always been great. Everyone
Yep.
who talked, I've always been a huge fan of him. I was a fan of him in Minnesota. I wanted him to get his shot in New Orleans. I wanted him to get his shot in was it Denver? I just think he's an amazing human being and a solid quarterback. Again, I don't think he's gonna be the best quarterback or anything like that, but he almost never loses games. He always puts the team in a position to have a chance at winning. And when you're a backup quarterback or a guy like Gino who's starting over in Seattle, your job is not to try and go out there and press it. It's go over there and not make the big mistakes. And Teddy doesn't make those mistakes. He has a unique advantage this time. He has a cheat code in Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle is no joke himself. So he's got some tools to go over there. And I know you're not a huge fan anymore, but Raheem Mostert can play football when he's healthy.
When he's healthy, yeah.
Yeah. And he's healthy right now. So, I hope that Teddy's able to do some nice things until Tua gets back, which I hope is however long it takes. They said that he's done tests, neurological tests, brain scans, and so on. There's no permanent damage, but I have to imagine they'll sit him out for 2 to 3 weeks, at a minimum, and see how he's doing. On the other side, it's nice to see that they're moving in the right direction, but this is a team I think that averaged 28 to 30 points last season. So to roll out a ticker tape parade for them scoring 27 just isn't quite there. Joe Burrow started to look like he was comfortable, but that could have more to do with Miami Dolphins defensive line than the progress that the offensive line of the Bengals made. Joe Mixon always runs hard, but he was still only able to get 2.5 yards a carry. I think this game, it's hard to tell if the Bengals are starting to go in the right direction or if the Miami Dolphins just weren't able to recover from the emotional and physical impact of watching the guy who's been starring for them playing quite well all season and leader almost die on field. So it's hard to make heads or tails of what actually came out of this.
They played they just played a very hard game the week before too in the heat. I know Buffalo was feeling it, but Miami was in the heat too. So it's a lot
and
energy to expend
on the field, for 90 plays exactly
against Allen and the boys. So
exactly.
Last one, and then we'll get kind of quickly run through your guys' thoughts for this upcoming week is the Chiefs and the Buccaneers.
Yeah, man, I like that game, man. I had the Chiefs only because Tampa Bay was just so banged up. Speaking of Mozart, I mean, the Mozart of wide receivers is Julio Jones. I mean, he's always banged up. I think he came back for this game and maybe Chris Godwin, but I didn't think too much of it because I knew they were still banged up. Yeah, Julio only has 4 catches all season, so he's not really a factor. But if Tampa Bay had all their pieces, I think they probably would have won or kept it closer. Kansas City, though, what I noticed is you can't really run on Kansas City. Kansas City can stop the run. And unlike the Super Bowl, they actually defended whatever pass rush Tampa Bay had, because they got Kansas City got all new linemen, or three or four new linemen after that Super Bowl, right after they lost the Super Bowl against Tampa Bay. So they were able to hold up. I still think Kansas City is good. I still think Tampa Bay is good when healthy. Their offensive line, Tampa Bay, is still a little shaky. But, they put up 31 points, and a lot of that is because Kansas City can be passed on. So that's a note, Glenn. You can pass on Kansas City. Can't run on them, but you can pass on them. But it was a good game, though. I just always knew though that the Kansas City would win, and the Kansas City had sort of that. They, I watched them against Indianapolis the whole game, and I watched them against Tampa Bay. It was totally different attitude. Seemed like they had that revenge factor on their mind. They knew, they lost to them. They wanted to pay them back. So this game really meant a lot to
Hey,
them.
man.
But also, what I noticed is, man, it just made me looking at Andy Reid. To me, is probably the best play caller I think in NFL, and maybe because he has Mahomes, he can do that. But
And be
he's
enemy.
just he's just so damn creative, and I look at my team on Monday night, the 49ers, and it's just so damn bland. It's just Kyle is just so rigid, and it's just these plays, whatever. And I look at Andy Reid, they put in a new wrinkle, like one new wrinkle player, maybe
Hey,
two
man.
every single week.
That boy,
So
Mahomes, bad though. Like
yeah,
you have someone like that. This dude was throwing stuff over his shoulder,
yeah,
falling into the side.
yeah,
Like
man. But
the
he's scheming up.
creativity in the plays, though. You're right.
Yeah,
Just
but
red
players
zone
like that.
creativity is
Yeah,
fantastic.
players like that. I mean, do some type of play or something or two a game or something like that. So Andy Reid, man, just a good play caller, and just made me look at my team on
Yeah.
Monday like whatever. But anyway, good game. Kansas City won. I don't think they're unbeatable because they can be passed on, but it's a good game by them. They had their revenge factor, and Tom Brady's going through a whole bunch of stuff. But anyway, Brian, what you
Really.
think about the game?
I think Andy Reid was the difference maker here. So here's a pretty good a good telling stat. Patrick Mahomes had 37 attempts, rushing attempts, 37 attempts. They got 189 yards out of their running backs total, and 228 yards and 3 touchdowns out of Mahomes, and some miraculous plays. But on the other side, Brady had 52 attempts, and they only had 6
Crazy.
rushing attempts for 3 total yards on the ground. You can't do that and expect to win. And we know what we know about Brady is, for as good as he is, and he plays a better football game and wins more when he is actually underneath the 300-yard mark, and the rushing game is a factor. When they would have, and it goes back to New England, when they get an even amount of rushing plays and an even amount of passing plays, Brady can capitalize on those plays and do them when he needs to and make the right play and make the right call. But when you're predictable and you can shut down a whole half of the offense, you can't do that. And Andy Reid outcoached the Tampa Bay team and ultimately had them win. And it was this wasn't a fun game to watch for as many points as it was scored, because you just knew a strong effort by Brady was being wasted.
I think Tampa Bay game plan was perfect because
they
you
look
can't
great.
run. You can't run on KC. You just can't. I mean, they knew it early. They realized it. Our offensive line cannot get any traction against that defensive line. So let's pass.
You know what you do when you only run 6 run plays?
What's that?
You let them know exactly what you're going to do.
Run 6 more.
That's it. You
Well,
got to, whether you get yardage out of them or not, in order to keep the secondary honest, you've got to make sure that you run some plays so that they're staying a little bit closer to the line. They could back off 20 yards and just be like, all right, our linebackers are going to cover the middle. You ain't running it. Our linebackers will cover them short. We're going to run zone. Everyone else is going to play deep. You can have yardage, which they gave up. It's not a matter of whether they could pass on or not. They said, here, have all the yardage you want. We're going to beat you over the course of the game, and they did.
Kansas City won because they ran the ball and they were able to run against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay can't run.
37 and 37. It's not a coincidence that was a perfect 50-50 split.
Nobody's running on KC this year. Everybody's pass. You can't run on them. They got that bottled up. You got to beat it. And the hardest thing in the NFL to do is pass when everybody knows you're going to pass. And Brady was still able to pass against them. I mean, Lamar.
I don't give credit to teams when they didn't have to do anything. It's like it's sort of like when you and this happens a lot with cornerbacks. They'll be like, oh, this quarterback is the best lockdown guy, and nobody throws his way. Congratulations. And then when this is let's use the example. Jalen Ramsey is exactly what they used to say about him.
Yeah.
And some teams started testing him, and they realized,
well, yeah, you have more options.
His
Probability says
his reputation outweighed was better than his ability. And now he looks like toast.
Well, yeah. I said that there's no such thing as a shutdown corner because every person who's considered a shutdown corner has a great safety playing behind him. like Revis and Kerry Rose and other people. So it's like there's no Richard Sherman and Earl Stevens. No, that's E40.
Let's see, for
Earl Thomas, yeah.
Earl
Earl
Thomas.
Thomas, yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's no such thing as shutdown corner. They get burnt. It's got good guys behind them.
Yeah,
But
Mahomes are
Yeah.
great. So I was very
Yeah.
nervous watching that game because we're coming in. Raiders are going into KC this week, so we don't
Yeah.
need no preview. It's every man for himself, God for us all. Any other games you guys
Well,
are?
I'll just say, I was just looking up the stats there. Teams are running against KC. When they give carries, they get to 90, 100 yards in total. No one player's blown up against them, but Eckler and the Chargers were able to get 90 out of them. Jonathan Taylor got 70 something out of them. So it's not like, and the difference is each of them were running more than 6 times. I mean, that's a low bar, but they're not unsolvable. They're very good, but they're not unsolvable.
Okay.
Well, based on my team's offense, it's unsolvable. So I just want them to compete, just be close is all I'm hoping for, and that's solid. Any games you guys are looking forward to this week?
Yeah. Teddy B and the Jets. I think that spread is too low. I think Jets are getting way too much credit for beating a rookie who just came in, Kenny Pickett, and he should have been starting at the beginning of the season.
He was close to winning that game too.
Yeah, I don't know why you start Trubisky, but I don't even know why you even play Trubisky. But anyway, yeah, they beat Pittsburgh. Good for the Jets. But I think they're getting a little bit too much respect after that win because that's not a good Pittsburgh team. And I just think Miami with Teddy Bridgewater is just way better than the Jets. So I'm going to watch that game for monetary purposes. But there's other couple of games I'm gonna be on the lookout for. Brian, what about you? What's the game you're looking out for?
Well, I like the game that you picked. I mean, obviously, I'm going to be looking at my game. The going against the Bears. It's an important game for the team. I was joking earlier about how bad I think they are, but I do believe that I would pick the Vikings to win. They're favored by 7. I actually think that they're going to cover the spread. This is one of those games, and I mentioned it a couple weeks ago, that the Vikings play real well. Their stats look real good, and then in the aggregate and averages, people talk about how Kirk Cousins is a perfectly salvageable quarterback or usable quarterback. So obviously, I'm looking forward to that game.
And you guys have the Dolphins the week after.
Yep.
In Miami.
Yep. And so, anyways, while I do not think that the Vikings are a good football team, I do think that they're going to be able to beat the Bears, who I have very, very little respect for. And I just don't think that I don't think they're that good. So give me Minnesota and I'll give up 7.
Yeah. No. What you, Glenn? Is there another game? I know there's a couple other games I'm looking.
Well, obviously, I got to see how
my
my team does, man. I just want to see them compete. Like I said, it's very, very difficult to beat KC in KC. We've seen that they can score at will. I just want to see these guys compete for 4 quarters. I'm not expecting a win out of that. I'm gonna keep it 100. I don't know what the spread is, but
7.5. 7.5 in case, yeah. And they're running a different offense. They're not running last year. They're not running Tyreek Hill offense. They're running different offense this year.
Yeah, I don't think it matters, bro. They looked so good last week. I don't think it matters. Mahomes is I can't even front on the dude, man. He's a magician, straight up. Like just watching him play, things he can do, his ability, his intelligence at the line, stuff he sees. He's a good player, man. And then you damn near plug anyone in. You just don't get the home run ball, but all you need is 10 yards at a time. So we can get 10, 20, 15. You got Kelsey still. Juju had some catches. I think they're solid, man. Point blank. So I just want to see my team compete. Beyond that, everything else is kind of. I think a lot of these matchups. What I'm seeing, and I felt like this last week, was the matchups historically. It's the Eagles versus who the Eagles got.
Cardinals.
The Cardinals, right? Like historically, those teams aren't that good, but now you put Murray, you put JJ Watt, you put Hurts, and that 4-0 team. It's actually a game that might be worth something. Browns and the Chargers. Browns kind of show up in these games, so we might see. But
the only other game that
crazy about is I just got to see mine. I'm gonna watch y'all teams, and I'm gonna watch tomorrow night because Colts and Broncos actually has implications on the AFC.
Yeah, the one I really want to see the Bengals versus the Ravens on Sunday night. That's, in my opinion, not only a very important game, but also a really interesting game because Bengals are obviously going to try and see some momentum to figure out if they've got building anything after last week. They're playing a Ravens team that just came off of a tough loss. Is going to look for a rebound game. I imagine their defense is going to blitz like crazy to try and get Burrow to frustrate Burrow. And obviously, and the Bengals have given up some points. So, Lamar is going to look to try and score some and try and get back on track. So that game is, in my opinion, is going to be really interesting. It's Baltimore -3, and I'm gonna stick with Baltimore.
Yeah.
Baltimore wins by 4.
Yeah, there's the game I'm interested in watching, and nobody's going to watch this game. It's probably going to be the lowest rated game of the damn day. It's going to be Jacksonville and Houston. The reason why is, number one, because I picked Jacksonville to win the division, but that's not the reason I want to watch it. The reason I want to watch it is Jacksonville is favored by 7 against Houston. That Jacksonville hasn't been favored by 7 in probably over a decade. Yeah. And Houston has beaten them 8 straight times. And the last 2 times they played, they won by at least 2 touchdowns. And now Jacksonville is favored by 7 against Houston. So
Houston ain't been no.
Are you taking
Houston ain't no.
Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're trying to say?
Hell no, I'm not taking Houston in my points per the game. I take Jacksonville, but I have to see it for myself to believe it.
Houston ain't no joke either. They're not just a pushover. They played everybody hard. They played my whole division damn near. They played everybody close.
They've only won 1 game, right? Against y'all?
Yeah, but they didn't play us yet. Thanks.
They
We played them week
They
6.
have not won a game yet.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
They have. Yeah, they have to, because we were the only team that hadn't won a game. So they had to beat somebody.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't think Houston's that good, but Jacksonville actually blew the game against Philly. I mean, that guy, Trevor Lawrence had like 5 turnovers. He had like 4 fumbles. It was raining, but still 5 turnovers is 5 turnovers. I mean,
Houston was one of the other teams that I said was going to be amongst, if not the worst team in football.
Yeah. They're
every bit of that.
They tied the Colts. They lost by what?
A 16-3 game to the Broncos, who were playing awful, still playing awful.
9-16 to the Broncos, and then 20 they lost 2023 to the Bears.
Giants.
And the Bears are awful.
So I mean, I'm gonna give you that. They're playing tough teams, but they're playing them close. So the Jags are still figuring it out. I think that actually might be a good game. Keep it real. Plus, it's a divisional. Anytime you're division, it's always.
I got to see it. I have to see it to believe it.
I may watch it just because I am a huge supporter of James Robinson. A couple of years ago, he was one of those guys that I thought was going to do some things, and he's still doing them. So, anyways, I'll obviously I'm going to have every game on because that's what I do. But I'll pay attention to this game. But I definitely don't expect Houston to put up much of a fight against Jacksonville.
I bet they'll be close. There's no way. I don't think it's going to be a game that's even on TV where I'm at. So I'll see him on Red Zone.
Yeah.
At Tennessee,
I would give up the 7 points and take Jacksonville.
Yeah. And Tennessee's playing Washington. The only reason that game is interesting is because I think if Washington loses, I think somebody getting fired. Yeah, that team is bad. Somebody has to go.
I'll put it like this. Tell me how it goes. Ain't no way.
Other than that, I don't see any. The Rams and Dallas, that doesn't interest me. I'm with you, Brian. Cincinnati and Baltimore, that's an interesting game. Definitely going to watch that.
Last week, though, I was looking at the matchups like this, and they weren't all that intriguing by name, but then the games actually ended up kind of entertaining. So I think the same thing happens this week.
Tampa Bay is going to blow out Atlanta. I'm surprised Mariota's not hurt yet. He will get hurt, but he's not hurt yet. So, but Tampa's going to. Atlanta has the worst defense in the league, but they're going to get killed. But yeah. That's it,
Brady. Yeah,
I think Tampa Bay lost 2 straight games. They lost to Green Bay and they lost to KC.
That's right. This would be. There's no chance he was the Falcons. But Brady hasn't lost 3 games in a row since 2002.
Yeah, so it's a get right game for them.
So but that's it. It's not gonna happen this week either. So word. All right, guys. Well, always a pleasure, man. Had the technical difficulties. I'll splice the shows, but minute to win it. I don't really have anything specific. Just actually. Shout out to my cousin Floor and Alex for getting married this weekend.
Okay, I just gonna we're all Laker fans, and the way the team is currently constructed, we're not going to make the playoffs. So I'm just hoping that they just get rid of Russell Westbrook just for anybody. I mean, for a damn get 2 tacos at Jack in the Box, something. You know what I'm saying? Just make the trade with Indiana, get Miles Turner and Buddy Hield, so we can at least make the playoffs. Okay,
we will. I was gonna say we will make the playoffs.
That's a real trade.
So I mean, but yeah, I won't get too much in basketball. We'll do a preview show soon, but that's only my. Oh, and thank you all for listening. We're on Apple, we're on Anchor, Spotify, YouTube. Check us out. Give us a like, leave a comment.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, the only thing that I'll say is. My heart goes out to the people who were impacted by Ian, which is still going on and people have forgotten. And it's not just people here; it's people in Puerto Rico. It's anything that's been in its path.
Bahamas, yep.
There's some really serious impacts there. And then I sincerely hope that the NFL Players Association doctor who let Tua play never gets to practice medicine of any kind again. I don't care. He shouldn't be able to put a Band-Aid on a stub toe after what he did and how he handled himself. He proved without a shadow of a doubt that he is not a decent person and should no longer be allowed to practice anything that's considered medical. Now he can't even, he shouldn't be able to go get his chiropractor's license. That's it.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
doctor. He's a doctor from Any Given Sunday out this month.
That's exactly right. James
Ridiculous.
Woods.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Word. Thank you all. Like Coop said, thanks for listening. Brian and Coop, man, always a pleasure. Thanks everybody. Check us out on the Sports Counterpoints YouTube page or Anchor, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts, and we will catch you guys next time. Thank you.